How to build a healthy relationship. I can give you a little heads up. It's not luck, it's not magic, but you're going to see a little magic in this episode. So do you ever get up in the morning and wonder, I wonder if gravity's on today? No. You know that it's on. Gravity's always on, and it always works. I have a little demonstration for you. This is a steel ring. In just a moment, I'm going to let go of this steel ring. What direction do you think it's going to go? Oh, yeah, you're pretty sure, right? It's going to go down. Really? Will you be totally surprised if it does something else? Okay, now watch. Watch. Not surprised, are you? Why? Because you understand gravity. When we talk about principles, gravity is a natural law. Okay, it's going to happen whether you believe in it or not. It's going to pull things down just like it did that steel ring. Now, what if that steel ring is placed first on a chain like this one? Now, I'll show you exactly how I'm going to do this. The ring gets placed on the chain like this. Now, when I let go, what's going to happen? Same thing, right? It's still going to fall. Wait. What just happened? Did you catch that? Now, how did I do that? Some of you might know how I do this. To some of you, it might look like magic. Some of you might think that it's luck. Well, what is it? Is it magic? Is it luck? No. No, it's principles. There are principles behind this trick that allow me to do it every time. It's not luck. And it's not magic. I'm a psychologist, not a magician. So, what would happen if you knew what I know about this trick? Well, you could replicate it. And a lot of times when I'm doing a keynote or a seminar or a training, I'll invite people right up onto the stage and teach them in front of everybody else how to do this trick the first time they try it. Amazing, right? Well, no, it's just simple principles. And as we apply those principles, it changes the outcome. So there's probably things in life that are more important than a trick with a chain. What if we could apply the same concept to relationships? How do we build a healthy relationship? Well, folks, I'm here to tell you, it's not magic. It's not luck. There are principles that determine the success of a relationship. What would happen if you knew what those principles are? See, that's what we're talking about. Now, to introduce the relationship principles, I first want to refer back to research that was done. This was probably 20 years ago. Dr. John Gottman, who was one of the nation's leading researchers in relationships, and specifically marital relationships, but I think this applies in other relationships as well. He found in his research that roughly 70% of all of the problems in a relationship are unresolvable. Unresolvable. I tell some people that, a couple I'm working with, for example, that 70% of the problems are unresolvable. Some of them just throw their hands in the air. It's like, well, what's the use then? And others are just relieved because they don't feel so weird now that they're experiencing some of these things. What Gottman found is that this number is absolutely consistent in the research that's been done. It's been replicated. We already know this. Now, really quickly, when Gottman talked about problems, I think he meant primarily conflicts. Anytime you bring two different people together, you're going to have conflict. Why? because we got different preferences, we got different backgrounds, we've got different beliefs, we've got different languages, we've got different genders. And so we are going to have some conflicts because of the differences. Now, a little word about differences. Differences give us a reason to have that relationship in the first place. If two people are exactly the same, there is no need for a relationship. One of you is unnecessary. So the differences actually make us relevant and interesting to each other. Okay, in a marital relationship, even at the level of gender, it's the differences that are interesting. Think about it. So, to come together in a relationship, we have to be different. That makes us relevant and interesting to each other, but those differences are going to cause conflicts. And I think that's what Gottman was picking up on in his research. Now, unresolvable, what does that mean? You know what? I've done a lot of work in child custody cases and in divorce cases. I used to do child custody evaluations for the court. And in the state of Utah, when someone files for divorce, they have to list a legal cause for the divorce. And the most common one is irreconcilable differences. Irreconcilable differences. Unresolvable conflicts. Well, those sound like the same thing to me. But here's what's interesting from Gottman's research. He found that this was true for the miserable, highly conflicted, headed for separation and divorce couples. About 70% of their problems unresolvable. He also found that this was true of the happy, well-adjusted, stable, satisfied couples. There was no difference between these two groups in the number of unresolvable problems that they had. In fact, you could not distinguish between these two groups based on that metric. Isn't that interesting? What that suggests to me is that these two groups are doing something very different with their unresolvable problems. So going back to Gottman's research, let's go over here to the miserable couples first. Because here's the short version, folks. We want to do more of what works and less of what doesn't in order to establish and maintain a successful relationship. So let's go to Gottman because his research showed a 4-part process. He called this the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. If you like that kind of imagery. The 4 things that were predictably found to put people on this side of the equation, on the miserable side of the equation. And he identified first criticism. Okay, now criticism doesn't have to be real or intended. As long as it's perceived, we're off to the races. Criticism leads to the next one, which Gottman called defensiveness. This totally makes sense, because if you're being attacked, what do you want to do next? Get your shield up. Protect yourself. You're going to be defensive. That's a natural response. Defensiveness leads to the third thing, and that is contempt. Now, the way Gottman described this, contempt is kind of like defensiveness turned hostile. So you got your shield up, now you draw your sword. You want to get some counterattacks in there somehow, okay? So it's a retaliation, really. And then that third one, contempt, leads to the last one. Gottman called that stonewalling. Stonewalling is turning away from each other instead of turning toward each other. It's like building up a stone wall or a more permanent form of defensiveness against all of that chaos that's happening from the contempt and the defensiveness that's going on. Okay? 4 horsemen of the apocalypse. Now, I didn't share those with you to alarm you, because probably you do these things, right? And Gottman acknowledged, yeah, most couples do. But the thing that puts them on the miserable side of the equation is if that becomes the habitual way that they deal with their unresolvable problems, and if they're not willing to change it. So glad he said that part, because that gives us some hope, right? So what's on this side over here? Principles. Principles. Like what I shared with you already about the chain and gravity. right? It's not magic. It's not luck. The people who are on this side of the equation have understood and applied certain principles that allow them to do that. It's not luck. It's not magic. There are 9 of those principles that I'm particularly fond of, and I'll share at least a few of those with you here on this video. In fact, I think I'd just give you a summary of all 9, and then we can delve into the details in some other content. The first one is what I first shared when we started doing daily videos here. In fact, you can link to that video right up here. It's about how to be positive no matter what. The first principle is positivity. And I picked that one because it has to do with 2 processes in our mind that are constantly going on, evaluation and creation. Go review the video and you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. That principle works and it saves relationships. One of the interesting paradoxes there is that you have to do a positive evaluation of what it is in order to set yourself up to actually go create something even better. Think about it. Your marriage, for example, your relationship, whatever you're in right now, could be worse, right? Or it could be better. And it's easier to focus on that sometimes because you want it to be better. But to make it better, sometimes you have to accept first that it's already good. That changes the energy, it changes the dynamics, and it sets us up for the creation mode where we're going to go actually improve it. So positivity is that first one that I want to share with you. The next one is values. Having some common set of values. And sometimes this ties into religion or prayer or meditation or mindfulness, where we can come together to decide on a higher purpose for this relationship. That tends to be a solidifying factor in relationships and has shown to be an effective way to create a healthy, functional relationship, to have that common shared value. The next one, and this is not going to surprise anybody, you got to be humble enough to be willing to change personally. And this is hard for people in general because we know that we're right. Now check in with this, because it's not that we think we're right. We know we're right. And when we dig in that place and insist on being right, we treat each other terribly. And most of the conflicts that come up in a relationship are what my friend Brett Williams refers to as the right fight. Brett wrote a book called You Can Be Right or You Can Be Married. And I love that title. But Brett's convinced that every conflict that comes up in a marriage, for example, gets back to who's right instead of what's right. We got to be humble enough to let go of that so that we're willing to change. The next one is tied right to it. That we are humble and willing to change, and we're willing to allow others to change. Okay? And this gets back to that same pride, because when we know that we're right about our judgment of somebody else, we kind of set up a secret resistance to allowing them to change, meaning that we're willing to see them in a different light and let them move forward and learn from their own mistakes. Quit bringing up the past. Let someone change and be that better person that they're already striving to be. The next one, respect. Treating people with respect. You can see how that could be really important. Love. I believe that our job in a relationship is to love people, no matter what, and even if. Let's get rid of the judgment. Let's get rid of the I'm better than you kind of an attitude, but humbly just accepting our ability and probably responsibility to love in that relationship. Followed right on its heels, I'm going to list compassion. Compassion, I think, combines love with kindness and gentleness and treating people in a compassionate way. The last 2 that I'm going to list today in this list of 9 are work, good old-fashioned hard work, because it's going to require some to maintain this relationship, and finally, fun. wholesome recreational activities where you get together for the sole purpose of enjoyment. And when we're enjoying our life, what else is there? That's like the main purpose, so we can't leave that off the list. If we're not having fun, we're doing it wrong. I just shared with you 9 principles. I could probably think of 24 or more that might improve marriage. These are absolutely powerful, and these power tools will help you to actually create and maintain a successful, healthy relationship. It's not magic, it's not luck. Right, not luck, not magic, principle. These principles make a difference. I know that you've had some experience with some of these. I would love to hear that, and our other subscribers would as well. Comment below.